Earlier in the month of December here, the state of Minnesota announced that it had a projected billion-dollar budget surplus. This is absolutely phenomenal considering just about 3 years ago, we were facing closer to about a $6 billion budget shortfall. So what's changed over the last few years? Well, the economy's obviously gotten better, but you can't deny the fact that here in the state of Minnesota, we went through a resurgence of the conservative movement, at least in the House and Senate. They had temporary control over the last 2 years up till now. Now, of course, we had the state government shutdown, which didn't bode very well for them, but the policies that came out of that have actually, I believe, helped revitalize Minnesota's economy. Now, some of this has just been, we were so low and things are so bad, they could have only gotten better. But really, to completely have the school districts paid back this quickly and to completely have a surplus is huge compared to where we were just those few short years ago. But one thing I want to point out, a lot of people might say that the Democrats' ideas of taxes on the wealthy, more business-to-business taxes, and more social programming, let's say for lack of a better term, were part of this economic spurt. But really, let's stop and think. The new budget, which was passed by the Democratic-controlled state of Minnesota with the House, Senate, and the governor's office all being in DFL hands, began in July. Actually, since July, projected revenues have been down in the state of Minnesota compared to what they thought they would be. Now, that doesn't mean we're losing money by any means. We're still making money. There's still a surplus. It's just not as high as the surplus they expected it would be. And the 2 years before that, I believe, is when the corner was turned. Really, out of this billion-dollar surplus, this billion-dollar surplus is the result, I think, mostly, not entirely, but mostly because of the hard 2 years in the legislature done by the political party that was controlling those two branches of government beforehand. Now, it may not be all the way, but at least that had to play a huge role in it. Taxes were not increased. They did not try to go willy-nilly and did a whole bunch of huge spending. They sat there, they held the line hard, and they let the economy recover enough so we could get this state back in motion. So now what to do with this big, huge surplus? That's the question. Governor Dayton, just as recently as last week, has proposed and floated the idea of possibly up to a $975 billion building bond bill. In other words, as quickly as we get a surplus, let's make sure to borrow more money. Instead of spend the surplus on maybe some of these capital improvement projects, this is really where I think it should go. One-time money, like a surplus, in my opinion, in good government, should go to fix one-time expenditures. That's the money you go when you need to build a new bridge in this area one spot. We need to do some new lanes. We need to do this. We need to do that. The one-time expenditures. It cannot be used, in my opinion, to do any kind of general funding. Now, I'm sure the state's got ideas with it, but if you're proposing a $975 billion building bond and you've got nearly $1 billion budget, now granted, we still owe $200 million to the schools for the school shift, which was a terrible travesty that the state did. It is part of the budget negotiations a couple years ago that I was not happy about. That $200 million, once that goes back, it's going to be about $800 and something million surplus, which is still going to be plenty to cover most of the building bond project. Problem is, you know that's not how it's going to go. We're going to continue to ring up debt in the credit card. We're going to spend the surplus on something else. And 2 years from now, they're going to be saying they need to raise taxes again. I hope not, but let's just look at the pattern that we've seen over the last few years, and that seems to be the consistency.